Something big could be brewing behind the scenes at Ibrox. And if everything continues moving the way it's been reported, Rangers may be about to pull off a defensive deal that could shake up Russell Martin's backline entirely. The negotiations, which have been progressing quietly in the background, now appear to be reaching a decisive stage. And make no mistake, this isn't just another squad adjustment. This feels like a proper statement of intent from the new era at Rangers. While Martin continues shaping the team to his own image, a new piece of the puzzle seems ready to be slotted in or out. And that includes dealing with unexpected hurdles in the transfer market. The latest twist? Rangers reportedly had a bid turned down for one of the most talked about young goalkeepers in English football, Piers Charles from Sheffield Wednesday. And what makes the rejection even more surprising is the financial situation of the championship side. For a club that's been struggling to even meet payroll over the last few months, turning down over £1 million for a backup goalkeeper has raised more than a few eyebrows. The fact that Rangers are even in the mix for Charles speaks volumes. Jack Butland is firmly established as the number one at Ibrox, and rightly so. His performances, especially during the high-pressure Champions League qualifiers against Panathinaikos and Victoria Plzeň, have been top class. He's made critical saves, marshaled the backline with authority, and shown exactly why he was brought in. But the pursuit of Charles suggests the club is thinking long-term. They're not just trying to fill holes, they're building something more sustainable. And Piers Charles isn't just any young talent. At only 20 years old, he's already shown a level of maturity and shot-stopping ability that's made him one of Northern Ireland's brightest prospects. Despite being behind Cameron Dawson in the pecking order at Hillsborough, his stock has risen sharply, and both Rangers and West Ham have reportedly submitted offers exceeding the £1 million mark. But Sheffield Wednesday's ownership is holding firm, at least for now. Even with late wage payments and fans calling for change, owner Dejphon Chansiri seems unwilling to let go of a player he sees as one of the few shining lights at the club. Over at Ibrox, Russell Martin is no stranger to shopping smartly. Earlier this summer, he brought in JD Gassama from the same Sheffield Wednesday setup, a winger with electric pace and fearlessness in one-on-one situations. And it didn't take long for Gassama to show exactly what he's about. 4 goals already in the Champions League qualifiers, and the kind of direct, aggressive play that gets fans on their feet. He's not just contributing, he's exciting. He's giving the Ibrox faithful something to believe in again. But while the focus on youth and potential is clear, the present is demanding answers too. Especially now that Rangers are set to lose one of their key defenders. Reports have confirmed that Ifeko is on the verge of completing a move to Brazilian giants Palmeiras, with a £6 million deal nearly wrapped up. That's a tidy profit for a player who arrived from APOL just last year for around £800,000. And the deal includes performance-related bonuses and a sell-on clause, making it a well-negotiated piece of business from the Ibrox board. Still, Ifeko's departure leaves a big question mark at the left-back position. With the Champions League campaign still alive and domestic form under scrutiny, the last thing Martin needs is instability in defense. Max Aarons remains the only real option now, and that's a lot of pressure to put on one man, which is why the club is already moving fast, entering discussions with Turkish side Besiktas for Ridvan Yilmaz. Talks are underway, and while European clubs are keeping tabs on the situation, Rangers appear to be leading the charge. There's a sense of urgency now. The window is closing soon, and Martin knows the importance of having his squad locked in and ready. He's been clear about one thing: the club is not desperate to sell. If anything, they're in a stronger financial position than they've been in years, thanks to the new ownership group led by the US Consortium and Andrew Kavanagh alongside 49ers Enterprises. Since taking over in May, they've been aggressive, ambitious, and willing to back Martin in the market, and that investment is already bearing fruit. Rangers have brought in Oscar Cortez, Oliver Antman, Theo Asgard, Emmanuel Fernandez, J.D. Gassama, Joe Rothwell, and Lyle Cameron on permanent deals. They've also secured loan moves for Mikey Moore, Nasser Jiga, and Max Aarons. It's been one of the most active windows in recent Rangers history, and it shows a clear intent to close the gap on Celtic and bring silverware back to Ibrox. But while the transfer buzz has been non-stop, results on the pitch have yet to fully click. 2 draws to start the Premiership campaign have left Rangers trailing behind both Hearts and Celtic, who each boast perfect records. It's not the kind of start Martin would have hoped for, but it's still early days. And in Europe, the story has been far more encouraging. Overcoming Panathinaikos in the second qualifying round and then dispatching Victoria Plzen in the third has put Rangers on the brink of Champions League qualification. They now face Club Brugge in a playoff that could define their season, not just competitively, but financially. Last season, Celtic earned around £38 million from their Champions League run. If Rangers can match that or even go further, the financial injection could be transformative. That's the real prize here. Yes, playing in the Champions League is about prestige. It's about testing yourself against Europe's elite. But for Rangers, it's also about stability. It's about giving Martin the tools to continue building a squad that can compete at the highest level, domestically and abroad. With a better UEFA coefficient than Celtic, Rangers stand to earn even more from European competition this season. But they've got to get past Brugge first. That means 180 minutes that could change everything. For Martin, for the players, for the supporters. This is the moment. Qualify. And you send a message not just to Celtic, but to all of Scottish football. Rangers are back. And they mean business. Meanwhile, off the pitch, Martin is still answering questions about possible outgoings, including the future of midfielder Nico Raskin. But he's been very clear. Nobody's being forced out. And unless a massive offer comes in, something that makes sense for the player and the club, the intention is to hold on to their key performers. Martin knows that consistency and quality go hand in hand. You can't build a winning team if you're constantly replacing your best players. All of this sets the stage for a defining stretch of the season. Transfer negotiations, Champions League pressure, domestic expectations. It's all happening at once. But there's also a growing sense of optimism. For the first time in a while, there's a feeling that Rangers aren't just reacting to problems, they're planning, they're building. And under Russell Martin, they might just be turning the corner. And as we move into the closing stretch of the transfer window, the pressure isn't just on the manager, it's across the entire structure at Ibrox. The expectations are sky high, and the room for error is shrinking fast with each passing day. The stakes grow larger because this isn't just a rebuild, it's a response. A response to a 17-point gap to Celtic. A response to another season without silverware. A response to frustration that has been building in the stands, in the dressing room, and in the boardroom. Russell Martin isn't here just to steady the ship. He was brought in to change the course. And that means bold decisions, even if they're unpopular in the short term. The departure of Ifeko, for example, might raise a few questions among fans. After all, he was seen as a promising piece of the defensive line. But when a club like Palmeiras comes knocking with a £6 million offer, nearly 8 times what you paid a year earlier, it's the kind of deal that simply makes business sense. Especially when the contract includes performance clauses and future percentages. But losing a left-sided defender at this stage of the window puts the focus back on recruitment. And Rangers are not waiting around. The club's interest in Ridvan, Yilmaz Inonu. But the urgency behind it has intensified dramatically in recent days. Talks with Besiktas are no longer preliminary. They've advanced. And while the Turkish side is playing hardball, there's a growing sense that a compromise will be reached. Rangers are pushing to bring Yilmaz in as a key piece, someone who can slot straight into the starting 11 and provide the kind of balance Martin's system relies on. What's interesting is that despite the number of arrivals, the squad still feels like it's evolving. There are pieces that clearly fit. Oscar Cortez has already shown flashes of creativity that will be vital in breaking down low blocks in the league. Emmanuel Fernandez looks like he could become a real presence in midfield with his physicality and smart positioning. And JD Gassama, as mentioned before, has arguably been the breakout of the summer. But there's still room for improvement. Consistency is missing. Chemistry is still developing. And until those things click, the results may continue to be uneven. The Champions League qualifiers have been a clear example of that duality. Against Panathinaikos, Rangers looked sharp, aggressive, and organized, especially in the second leg, where the tempo and urgency were clear. But the tie against Victoria Plzen was far from perfect. Defensive lapses were still there, and the attack, while dangerous, lacked a bit of polish. But ultimately, Rangers got the job done, and that's what matters in Europe. Progress. Performances are secondary at this stage. You just have to find a way. Now, as they face Club Brugge, the test becomes even more demanding. The Belgian side are no strangers to Champions League football. They've been regulars in the group stages in recent years, and they've developed a reputation for being both disciplined and ruthless in transition. They knocked out Red Star Belgrade with a strong showing over 2 legs, and they'll come into this tie with confidence. But Rangers, especially at Ibrox, are a different beast. The atmosphere, the intensity, the history, all of that becomes a factor. It's why so many European teams struggle when they visit Glasgow. For Martin, this is where he earns his stripes. The decisions he makes over the next few weeks, in the market, in the starting 11, in his tactical tweaks, could define not only this season, but his future at the club. It's not just about getting through to the Champions League group stage. It's about building something sustainable, something that outlasts just one European campaign or one domestic title challenge. Because let's not forget, for all the excitement around potential earnings from Champions League qualification, there's also a real competitive goal here. Rangers want to be a team that competes, not just qualifies. The days of being content with just getting into the group stage are gone. If they can make it, they want to cause problems for the big sides. They want to show that Scottish football still has a place on the biggest nights in Europe. And with a few more smart additions and a bit of luck with injuries, that might not be as far off as some believe. The financial reward, though, cannot be overlooked. More than £38 million went to Celtic last season just for making the group stage and reaching the knockout playoff. That kind of cash injection would give Rangers a level of flexibility they haven't had in years. It could allow them to tie down key players, invest further in infrastructure, and most importantly, continue backing the manager. And that's why this playoff is being treated with such significance. It's not just another round. It's a gateway. It's also important to note how different the club feels behind the scenes. The arrival of the American-led consortium with Andrew Kavanagh and 49ers Enterprises at the forefront has changed the tone entirely. There's more direction, more clarity, and more willingness to act with purpose. They didn't come in to sit still. Since May, they've been aggressive, not just in spending, but in vision. They've backed Martin, and they've shown that they're willing to think long-term. That's reflected in the youth recruitment, in the strategic loan deals, and in the type of players they're targeting. Versatile, hungry, and with resale value. But ambition also brings pressure, and Rangers fans know better than most that nothing is guaranteed. A strong summer doesn't mean a successful season. And while the rebuild looks promising, the real test is consistency. Domestic form has been shaky so far. 2 games, 2 draws. 4 points already dropped. That's the kind of start that puts you on the back foot, especially when your rivals are perfect out the gate. The margin for error in the Scottish Premiership is razor thin, and Rangers don't have the luxury of playing catch-up for too long. That's why the next few weeks are critical, not just because of Europe, but because of momentum. A win against Brugge could galvanize the entire squad. It could lift the pressure and allow players to settle. It could open the door to a few final signings that really complete the team. But a loss? That could undo a lot of the goodwill and excitement that's been built over the summer. Martin knows that. The players know that, and so do the fans. That said, there's a different energy around the club this time. It's not just hype. There's a sense that something real is being built. The manager speaks clearly. The signings make sense. The structure is improving. And for the first time in a long while, Rangers are acting like a modern football club. Not just living off history, but creating a future. And that might be the biggest change of all. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. The chatter around Ibrox has been nothing short of relentless this week, as whispers swirl that James Tavernier, long-serving captain of Rangers, may be losing the dressing room's confidence. The spark was lit by a rather scathing remark from a former Rangers defender who branded the right-back a defensive disgrace during a late-night radio appearance. While pundits have taken swings at Tavernier's defensive lapses before, the sheer bluntness of the comment struck a nerve with supporters and reportedly some within the club. Fans on social media have been debating whether the captaincy, and indeed his guaranteed spot in the starting 11 is now justified. Sources close to the squad suggest there's been a notable cooling in his relationship with certain teammates, with some feeling his leadership is overly reliant on his attacking contributions rather than his duties at the back. The timing could hardly be worse, with a series of crucial fixtures looming and morale teetering. For now, the official stance from the club is silence, but insiders claim there's an undercurrent of unease in the corridors of Olshenhowie. The kind of quiet tension that tends to precede major changes at a club of Rangers stature. Privately, there are murmurings that senior figures at Rangers have started questioning whether Tavernier still embodies the qualities they demand from a captain in a side with title ambitions. His record from the penalty spot remains immaculate, and his goal tally for a defender is still remarkable, but the defensive fragility he's been accused of is no longer being shrugged off as a trade-off for his attacking output. According to one unnamed source, a handful of squad members feel Tavernier's performances have been getting away with murder because of his long-standing popularity with the fans and media. There's also talk that his recent body language in training hasn't gone unnoticed, with suggestions he has appeared more withdrawn than usual. It's unclear whether this is a reaction to the criticism or an indication of deeper frustrations. With the current setup under the management team, in the background, whispers grow louder that potential summer transfer plans could involve seeking a new right back with a more defensively robust profile, though nothing concrete has been confirmed. Former players' comments, though perhaps brutal, have sparked a wider conversation about Rangers' defensive identity as a whole. Tavernier has often been the face of the club's successes and failures, his captaincy coinciding with both historic highs and painful lows. In recent weeks, defensive lapses have been costly in tight matches, and critics point out that opposition teams have deliberately targeted his flank. The argument from his defenders is that Rangers' style demands fullbacks to push forward aggressively, naturally leaving gaps behind. However, this reasoning no longer seems to pacify everyone within the squad or the fan base. Behind closed doors, some voices are suggesting that leadership might be better served by a player who sets the tone defensively rather than offensively. While Tavernier's professionalism is not in question, there's a belief among certain insiders that the captain's armband could soon be reallocated, not as a punishment, but as a strategic shift. These theories, while still in the realm of speculation, are gaining traction on fan forums and in pub debates across Glasgow, where the line between informed opinion and pure gossip often blurs in the heat of football passion. Even the most loyal Tavernier supporters admit that the optics have become increasingly difficult to manage. For years, his statistics have been his shield against criticism, but the defensive disgrace label, once dismissed as just another overblown pundit jibe, is now being repeated in less forgiving circles. The phrase has stuck in the way football nicknames often do. Half joke, half truth. It's said that certain staff members have begun subtly adjusting tactical drills, perhaps a quiet acknowledgement that too much responsibility is being placed on the captain's forward runs. Some fans suspect that the management is quietly preparing the team for a future in which Tavernier is still involved, but no longer the focal point of the club's defensive and leadership structure. If these moves are indeed happening, they've been carried out with calculated discretion. After all, openly undermining the captain mid-season would risk fracturing the squad entirely. And yet, with media scrutiny intensifying and each match now framed as a referendum on his captaincy, one can't help but feel the ground beneath him is becoming alarmingly unstable. What remains to be seen is how Tavernier himself will respond to this simmering storm. He has weathered criticism before, often answering his detractors with match-winning performances that silence the doubters, at least temporarily. However, the tone this time feels different, more entrenched, as if the narrative has begun to harden against him. The ex-player's damning description has tapped into a lingering unease that even his most ardent supporters can't entirely dismiss. If the reports of waning internal backing are accurate, then the coming weeks will test not only his defensive resolve, but his leadership qualities under pressure. The next few matches could well define his long-term legacy at Rangers. Should he rise to the occasion, the rumors will fade, as they so often do in football. But should the defensive cracks widen, the calls for change, once unthinkable, may become irresistible. Until then, the speculation continues to swirl, as it always does in Glasgow, where footballing loyalty can be fierce, but the appetite for gossip and rumor is fiercer still. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.